Friends, more than once I've shown you various British towns. We've been to the Titanic Museum, where they tell you all about building the biggest ships, and inside the William Wallace Tower, outstandingly played by Mel Gibson in Braveheart, and even in the Buckingham Palace, which keeps memories of many British monarchs' footsteps. Today, let's go to Birmingham, first mentioned in records in 1166. In the 13th century, the town became famous with its fairs. By the 18th century, it has become the core of the country's industry, and its population sharply increased. Among Birmingham's former residents are famous scientists and engineers such as Matthew Boulton, who together with his mate have released around 100 of Boulton and Watt steam engines. Let me remind you that Watt had introduced the first unit of power, the horsepower, and his name represents the unit we see on light bulbs. Here also resided Joseph Priestley, a chemist who discovered the oxygen element, and the typographer John Baskerville. The city today is one of the leading science centers not only in the country but of the entire Europe. It has 5 universities, several university colleges, and one of the largest and most prominent universities in all of England, the University of Birmingham, part of the elite Russell Group. The city is also famous for its school education. The King Edward School makes it to the top of the rating each year. And an interesting fact: boys and girls' schools are separated. The girls' school is the best in England. The main plot of Peaky Blinders takes place here in Birmingham, in the style of 1920s. A gang like that really did exist. A lot of similar ones were active in the city at the time, but the Blinders became the most notorious. The gang consisted mostly of unemployed young men who engaged in robbery, gambling, and other crimes. Members of the gang wore distinguished suits, tailor-made jackets, lapel coats, buttoned vests, silk scarves, bell-bottom pants, leather boots, and, of course, the peaky flat hats. The gang existed for almost 20 years until in 1910 it was swept away by another strong and larger one, the Birmingham Boys, but no other gang was even that popular. So, at one point, any gang in the city has started to be called Peaky Blinders. What to check out in Birmingham? The Bullring Square is the oldest market in the city. The first market here was opened in the middle of the 12th century, when Lord de Birmingham was given a market charter. A lot of stuff has been selling here for centuries: groceries, cattle, horses. The market was really huge. In the 19th century, though, things had to be changed, since the hygienic rules had changed and the square didn't comply with them anymore. That's when the big covered market was constructed here, and in 1962 it was replaced with a big department store. But in 2003 it was also demolished and a modern shopping center took its place, named accordingly the Bullring Shopping Center. It has any kind of store for each and everyone, from Zara to Hugo Boss. The Bullring Indoor Market is also here, a covered market with farm produce and delicacies from other European countries. The Library of Birmingham is a public library in the western part of the city. It costs around £188 million, and it is considered the largest in Great Britain and one of the biggest in Europe. So it has the space for all that tourists. It has capacity of 3,000 people. During the first year, it was visited by more than 2 million people, most of whom were tourists, so it can be considered a local cultural landmark. Facade is basically entirely glass, except for the top floors, which are the archive. The most interesting part is the Shakespeare Memorial Room, which was created in 1882 for the old library. Then it was transferred to the new building. Now it is the circular structure atop of the building, decorated in the Victorian style, with different wooden cupboards, panels, and painting. As one might guess, the room keeps the best collection of Shakespeare in the United Kingdom and one of the best collections in the world. Birmingham Town Hall. Usually, Town Hall is a historical residence of the mayor, but in this case, it is a concert hall and should have been called music hall, but something went wrong. It was built between 1839 and 1841 for the big musical festival, and was inspired by the Temple of Castor and Pollux from the Roman Forum in Italy. The building turned out monumental and became the first example of the neo-Roman style during the Victorian era. It can hold upwards of 1,000 people, so you can conduct practically any type of concert here. Bands like the Beatles, Pink Floyd and the Rolling Stones performed here. Saracen's Head. Not far from the city in the King's Norton village is the Saracen's Head complex. Such an unusual name the complex has received from the pub that's been in one of the buildings here for 200 years. Now it consists of 3 parts: the Tudor Merchant's House, the Old Grammar School, St. Nicholas Church. All of them were built in the 15th century and rebuilt many times. So the Tudor Merchant's House was not only a pub but also a house, a shop and a store. The pub is still there and you can check it out along with the house. It keeps the original furniture and interior. The oldest is the Grammar School, built in 1434 by the church as a parochial junior school. It was closed in the 20th century, and the original early 15th century beams still remains, as well as furniture and other items. Beams are decorated with traditional carving, which was considered useful in repelling demons. St. Nicholas Church was built upon previous older church built by the Normans in 1931. St. Nicholas Church is a single-nave church made of old stone with a belfry. It has the original 13th century stained glass windows around the altar that are remaining from the old building. Here also remain the graves of the nobility of the 15th and 16th centuries, and even the grave of a tax inspector killed in the 17th century, the murderer of whom was never found. Birmingham statues. The city is rich in monuments, the most famous of which is the bull, the city's symbol. It is in the same Bullring Square area. It has its own walk of fame with names like Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi. Just as interesting is the cobbled sidewalks of the Jewellery Quarter. It is one of the largest in Europe, producing around 40% of all England's jewellery. Another local monument is of city-born Tony Hancock, the most famous comic of the 50s and 60s. Hancock's Half Hour, his TV radio program, was the most popular at the time. The monument was opened in 1996, created by the British sculptor Bruce Williams. It is located in the old square made of glass and bronze, recreating the comic's most famous photo.